All right. So, is it worth it?
Mm.
Dating as a Christian. Welcome to the Days and Confused in the Dating Pool podcast with myself, Mickler, and the lovely Rachel. And yeah, today we're going to talk about, is it worth it on this journey?
Yeah, so this is a topic that has been so on our hearts because, first of all, we are on this journey with you. We don't have it all figured out. We haven't met our spouses yet. We're still mingle and ready to single, y'all. No, let me reverse that. Single and ready to mingle, y'all. Woo! Words. But really, we understand how easy, before we went live, Mickler, you and I were just talking about how you can be discouraged and then encouraged because you get a message from somebody and you're like, ooh, this could be something. And then you can be discouraged the next second,
Yep.
right? It just, that is, first of all, that is life. Secondly, that is dating. That's just the realities of dating. And so when you get to this point where you feel like, okay, Lord, I've been at this a hot minute. What the heck is happening? It can feel like, is it worth it? And we are just here to say we completely understand. We don't have all the answers. We say this every podcast, but I just want to give that disclaimer up front. We are not dating experts. We're not dating coaches. We don't pretend to be. We are just two friends who love Jesus on the journey of dating. And, when it comes to this idea of discouragement in dating, something that the Lord brings back to my, I'm sorry, words are a struggle tonight.
That's
Something
all
that
right.
the Lord, in case you can't tell, I did a 7-mile hike in the sun yesterday that was amazing. And clearly I'm still recuperating. Anyway, all of that to say, no, but something that the Lord brings back to me over and over and over is a phrase my mama says that is, delay is not denial.
Ooh.
Delay is not denial. And I know when it comes to dating, whoo, there come the emotions. It can feel like this cycle of not yet. And that is really, really hard. When you are like, oh my goodness, I finally find this person and I click with them and it just seems like there's so much and I definitely see a potential with them and we're on the same page spiritually and emotional intelligence wise and intellectually and I'm speaking like a woman, right? Our stages of attraction, right? I really connect with this person intellectually and emotionally and spiritually and we're just really on the same page about some things that not everybody's on the same page about, and we are passionate about the same things and we enjoy doing the same things for fun and whatever. Not that those are requirements, but just when you start to feel like, ooh, things are clicking and grooving and whatever, and then either there's a pause or a no, and you're just like, oh, God, really? Again? Can we just get this show on the road? Today is Mickler's birthday. Shout out to Mickler, 33 years young, y'all.
Yeah.
And I'm 42. And I didn't expect to be on this dating journey as long as I have been. And Mickler, I know, you didn't either, even though you're a little whippersnapper. No, I'm teasing you. I'm totally teasing you. I would never call you that in real life because you would totally kick my ass. Let's just be
No,
real.
no, no. I'm a gentleman. I would not lay my hands on you.
It's true, you would
Big
not.
hug, big hug.
With all of those forceful muscles. No, I'm teasing. No, but really, it just can feel like, God, how long? How long are we going to do this for? Why are we still doing this? And the thing that just comes back to me, not just the thing, the phrase that Holy Spirit whispers to me over and over and over and over and over and over again, that just to be fully transparent, he's whispered to me again this afternoon, sitting with God in my thoughtful spot by the water in my favorite park. Delay is not denial. And so I just want to speak those words to you and encourage you today that delay is not denial. And just this story is coming to mind that I want to share. So when I first got back into dating, I thought that I was just gonna, especially because, one of my spiritual dads had this dream about me dating, and God was like, go into dating. He like wrote it in the sky, like, get back in the dating pool. And I just had this idea that I was going to jump into the water and everything was going to be great. And my husband and I were just going to connect and it was going to be fireworks and fantastic. And that is not what happened. Like, my first month of dating was a crap show. Like, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Like, I met a really great guy. He asked me out. Well, okay, let me back up before that. So I shared this story a little bit, but I had a super, super awkward setup date, blind date. And that was super awkward. And I was like, all right, that's definitely not the thing. And then I got on apps and I met this guy he still is a really sweet guy. We're just not on the same page spiritually. And he took me out for New Year's and we had a great time. And it seemed like, oh, wow, okay, like maybe this could be a thing. And then some things came out and we were very much not on the same page. And I was like, okay, this is a bummer, and then like you meet somebody else. Again, that whole like, okay, this is devastating. Oh, this is exhilarating. Oh, this is devastating. Like that can all happen within 24 hours. And so, and you meet somebody else and you're like, okay, maybe this could be a thing. And, and like one of the second or third guys I met, like totally love bombed me. And I didn't even know love bombing was a thing. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like this could really be a thing, and da da da. And like we had a 6-hour conversation and blah, blah, blah. And then boom, he was a total jerk. So, and then you like meet somebody else. And anyway, like I did not anticipate how many guys there were going to be that first month. And that was January, the beginning of February, I was getting a snack for myself. And one of the things that I love to snack on is mid-jewel dates. And before I had gotten back into dating, so like we're talking for years now, I'd been like, well, this is the only date I've had in a while,
wait, I love mid-jewel dates, okay? Yeah. I just have to pop in and say that. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I'll go get one and put a candle in it for you for your birthday. I have some in the pantry.
Oh, nice.
But so I went to pull a snack for myself out of the pantry and I pulled out the container of mid-jewel dates. And there was a date in it. And again, like I said, for years I'd been like, well, this is the only date I'd have in a while, where I'd post it on a Friday night and be like, my hot date, just silly stuff. And as I went to pick up this date, Holy Spirit said to me, so honey, is that still the only date you've had in a while? And I went, wow, no, it isn't. I think there had been like 7 dates I had been on at that point, maybe more, not to mention all the, conversations in between. And he took me back because one of the questions I had been asking him that week was like, God, I don't get this. Like you told me to do this and I don't know why there have been so many. This just feels like a cycle of heartbreak that is not worth it. Like what the heck? And so as I get that date and he says that to me, all of a sudden I have a flashback to me in high school. And the kid whose locker was next to mine and his buddies, they were total bullies to me. And one of the things that they would do is they would make fun of me asking me out and then be like, yeah, right, anybody would ask you out. And in this moment, as I'm having this flashback, holding this date in my hand, the Lord says to me, see, honey, I wanted to go back and break that lie. Because there are multiple high-quality men that want to date you.
That's right. Amen.
And I just...
Holy Spirit is so clutch. I love that for you. Yeah.
Thank you. Amazing. And I just sobbed into my container of dates. Because all of a sudden I realized what was happening was so much bigger than simply meeting my husband, right? Sometimes we like put this on a pedestal of like marriage, woof, twoo, woof. Anyway, I had to. So, but we have this like, oh, this is it. And yes, as believers who are dating with intention, that is the goal. That is what we're headed towards. what Holy Spirit spoke to my heart that day undid years of pain and feeling like nobody wanted to date me that I did not even realize was a lie that I was still living under. And so I saw why there had to be multiple, because he wanted to go back to that memory and heal and restore and show me the truth of who he says I am. And so that for me just opened my eyes extravagantly to how dating is for discovery, and it doesn't always go the way we expect. I feel like 99% of our stories on this show are about that, right? At the same time, Romans 8:28 is always in operation in it all. He works all things together for our good, good, bad, and ugly. And also, every part of dating, every part of this journey of discovery is an opportunity to discover something about God, about others, about relationships, about the opposite sex, about ourselves. And what I discovered in that first month of dating is something that no one can take away from me. And now every time I eat major dates, Holy Spirit brings that memory back. And it's just this reaffirmation of like, honey, that was a lie. Let me tell you the truth of who you are. You are a high quality kingdom woman, and many high quality men want to date you. So there is one story of how God took a moment when I was really ready to be like, screw it. Forget this. I'm jumping out of the pool. This is not worth it. And he just said, can I show you what I see? With that, I'm teeing it off to you, Mickler.
No, I'm just like so shocked and in awe because like how you tied it, where it was like dating is for discovery, like not realizing like, hey, it was for you to see your worth. It's like, oh my gosh, my heart is full.
Because
No, I love that.
honestly, like that first month, there were a lot of train wrecks. But I would say more than the train wrecks, there were high quality, high caliber, men who wanted to get to know me, who wanted to take me on dates.
Yeah,
So, can you hear Nightly right now?
I can. The
Hey,
podcast.
yes, Podcat wants to join the show. Hey, this is why we go live. We're real about our dating journeys. We're real about our lives. And cats,
Yes,
who
yes.
literally are knocking on the door right now. I'll be right back.
No, so I love what you shared, Rachel, and I think the question that pops up is like, why do we get so discouraged on here? And I think personally for me, and maybe some of you will relate, but when we come across this one person, our heart goes into a place where we're like, wow, I see myself with this person. Like we align with our beliefs, with our values, even some of our like hobbies align. And we kind of like start creating this picture in our head of the future that we'll have with this person. But as you continue to, get to know them, talk, week after week type of thing, and it just doesn't work out, I think that heartbreak hurts more because we made it more than it really was, and it's like,
Facts.
would
No,
you
it's true.
agree?
Can I pause you for a second?
Yeah,
Like,
of course.
so disappointment comes from unmet expectations.
Yes.
And so many times, and this is something that I've had to learn the hard way, and I'm still learning, when I have encountered disappointment in dating, it's from unmet expectations, but the expectations were expectations that I put on the man, I put on the relationship. And so many times, like one of my spiritual dads, Deb, says this, and I love it, that, our greatest weakness is our greatest strength overextended. And for me, one of my greatest strengths that God has given me is my imagination. And that serves me very well in business, that serves me very well in life. I am the person who sees the possibility in everything. At the same time, when it comes to dating, I have to be so careful because my imagination will be 50 miles down the line. And so then when something doesn't happen, it becomes an unmet expectation that causes me to feel this deep disappointment. But the reality is, the expectation was only in my imagination. It was only in my mind. It was only in my emotions. And so some of the deepest sources of disappointment have been completely one-sided. Like obviously, and we've talked about this on the show, like takes two to tango, right? Like there's two sides to the story. But as far as like the depth of pain that I have felt,
Mm.
a lot of that, and this is no shame, no blame, no shoulda, woulda, coulda, right? This is all learning, this is all discovery. A lot of the depth of pain that I've experienced has been my own fault.
Yeah, I would agree 100% because like what you just said, like the depth of pain was due to my own imagination. And I think like I don't know, I feel like guys are a lot more romantic than the women in a sense of like they romanticize
Like, wait a minute.
like they no, literally like guys will
Them fight words. No, I'm teasing. I'm teasing.
No,
Go on.
if a girl says hi to a guy, you know what I'm saying? Like we already automatically think like, yo, she's into me. You know what I'm saying? And it's like she could just literally be like trying to move, in the aisle at church and just like, oh, like or
A
she
guy
brushed up on
smiles
me.
at us and we're already naming our babies, okay? So it goes both ways.
That's so funny. Yeah, interesting. It's so interesting. Oh my gosh. So like in the discouragement, if we know that we kind of go there with our imagination, like how do we guard ourselves or how do we,
Mm.
stay encouraged on the journey?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. You're just going right to my conversations with God today. That's what you're doing.
Oh, let's go.
Between this
Let us
morning
in.
and this afternoon, like again, I'll just be transparent. Like this morning, I just had tea with God and I was like, Lord, everything that I have tried to do, and not even tried, right? Because I think there's a balance there. There's like a striving, but like even even things that I know that you've told me to do, things that I know are good advice to do, like all of these things, like everything that I know to do, Lord, has failed. And again, hasn't failed because Romans 8:28 works all things together for good, and I have some very fun and funny stories to tell about that before we close. But um just like I can't make this happen on my own. I don't want to. I'm not trying to, but wherever I may have even been subconsciously trying to, like, Lord, I just give it all to you again. I just give it all to you. You told me to get in the dating pool. You told me to stay in the dating pool. So here I am. Beyond that, I just want you. I just want you. I just want what you have for me. And I want to be careful in how I say this because so many times in that moment, we feel like we have to like crucify this desire that he gave us to be married. And I don't believe that's true personally. I believe that he put that desire there because he wants to fulfill it. At the same time, I just really was at this place today with a number of things, one of which being dating, just being fully transparent. That Lord, I just give it to you. Like I need you to do what only you can do, and I trust you. And I let go because one of the things, again, greatest strength, greatest weakness is your greatest strength overextended. So I have a gift with my imagination. I also have a gift with strategy. And I have to be really careful about this, especially when it comes to dating, because I get into trying to figure things out. And I just had to say today, Lord, like, I give you the strategy. I just like take my hands off. And again, there's a balance, right? Because it's not like we sit and wait for the FedEx man to show up at the door and he happens to be our husband. Like, that's a whole other episode we'll talk about. But it was just in this place of like, anytime I try to control, it's based in fear because I want to know what the outcome is. And so I was like, Lord, even where I have been subconsciously trying to figure things out, analyze things, control things, whatever, in my mind, in my imagination, in my heart, in my emotions, like I just give it all to you. And I know that delay is not denial. And I know that you're a good father. And so I powerfully choose to partner my expectation with the fact that you are my good, kind, loving Heavenly Father who has more for me than I could ask, think, or imagine. So that's who you are. And you've given me this desire. And I know who you are. And I know that every good and perfect gift comes from you. So I can trust you, and I give up control. And I give up having to have it all figured out. I give up even having to know the answers right now. All of the questions that I have, all of the unknowns, all of the longings, I give it to you. I cannot carry this anymore. And so I think that's really where it starts, is remembering that he who began this good work will be faithful to complete it. It's not about our performance. It's not about if I pray enough this, if I do enough this, if I do enough. There's so many subtle ways that we fall into performance. And there were ways that I was doing that I didn't even realize. And, again, just being fully transparent, I went up for prayer after church today because it was just a very emotional day for me. And one of the associate pastors there asked if I could give him a hug. And he was like, sure. And as soon as he hugged me, he just said, the Father is so proud of you and you don't have to perform. And I just lost it. And I didn't realize how much I had slipped into performance mentality, even when it comes to standing and believing the promises of God and praying and being in faith and being encouraged and being whatever, which are all good things, which are all things we know that we need to be doing. At the same time, we don't have to perform for anything that the Father has for us. And that includes marriage. Every good and perfect gift. It's not a gift if you have to perform for it. It's not a gift if you have to earn it. And so I was just reminded afresh today of, first of all, I don't have to perform. And this is a gift that comes from you. So, Lord, you show me, you heal me, you grow me, you cause me to be the person that my husband needs me to be, both now and in the future. And I trust you with this. And also, I let go of the reins. I let go of the reins. Whatever you show me to do, I will partner with you in it. But I'm not going to try to figure it out on my own anymore. So I think that, there is a acknowledgement, first of all, of whose idea this was anyway. Sure as heck was not my idea to get back in the dating pool. Like, we've talked about that. And who began this good work? Who's going to bring it to completion? And that this is a gift that comes from him and that I don't have to perform. And then the other piece of that is that delay is not denial. And I remember saying to my mom one time, because I was getting really, really frustrated, like, Mom, it just seems like there's just been so many almosts. And she said, honey, I think the word you're looking for is not yet. And that's such a powerful reframe, because when we think of almost, it's like, well, I almost got it, but failed. Well, I almost like this falling short. Not yet is simply a timing thing. That's what I would say. What would you add to that, Mickler?
Sheesh. I mean, that was so much fire. I think for me, for me to guard my heart with the imagination and going there, I think realizing like, hey, I can be content in this season. You know how Paul says like, whether I'm rich or whether I'm poor, like I can be content. And it's like whether I'm single right now, even though I'm trying to not be single and find the one and, get married, as I'm dating and things aren't working out or it's not yet, I feel like reminding myself like I can be content in this and understanding like, hey, there's benefits to me not having, that girl by my side right now at this moment. Like I have more time for him developing the relationship with the Lord and just him loving on me in that moment and in time. I have more time for the work that he's calling me to do. So as men, we should be also very mission focused and driven. So if we have more time because now things didn't work out with that other girl, then it's like, hey, okay, I can pour more um energy, more focus, more time into that mission that he's calling me to go on. So yeah, one, it was like being content with whatever situation and season I'm in currently is one thing, and understanding the benefits. I think the other thing is like understanding like we do have hope in the Lord. So for me, I think we talked about this as well, where it was like our goal should be to draw the other person closer to Jesus or give them another, example of like, hey, what does it look like for me to be dating a kingdom woman or a kingdom man? And I think for me, if it doesn't work out for this girl that I felt like it was very promising, I'm like, hey, I still have hope because like this girl like has a lot of the values that I'm looking for. This girl has a lot of the beliefs that align, the hobbies and things. But it was like, oh, okay, if there's that one girl, then I'm sure God has, another girl who will be even a better fit. Like God knows, and He's all working. Romans 8:28.
Yeah.
Rachel said it.
Yeah.
Um,
Can I piggyback on that?
yeah, of course, of course.
I love that you brought that up because I think that's the other thing that we fall into is we meet somebody and we're clicking with them and all of a sudden all of our eggs are in that basket.
Mm,
And I don't think that's necessarily wrong, but the other thing that I need to be reminded of is God is a big God. And so when we approach dating with a scarcity mindset, it's like, oh, it's this person, and I have to know if this person is who I'm going to marry. And if I don't marry this person, then I won't marry anybody else, and then my life is over. And then, like,
yeah, yeah.
like whatever. And I know it can be hard because I mean, I know you and I have talked about this a lot offline, Mickler. Like, the people that you and I are looking for are rare
Mm,
because
yeah, yeah, yeah.
we're rare breeds, right? We talked about this before. Like, who we are, how we live our lives is a high standard. Doesn't only set a high standard. We don't only have high standards, we are high standards. And
Mm,
so those kind of people don't grow on every bush. And so I know for me, especially as a woman, when I find somebody, it's like, oh my goodness, I just found a needle in a haystack, you know? And then, like, if something happens and there's a pause or a not yet or a no, it can feel especially devastating because you're like, oh my gosh, like I finally found somebody who is the
yeah.
exact kind of person I am looking for that I have asked God for. And now it's a no. Like, how can this be a no? But whenever I get into that, what I have to remind myself, and thankfully what the Lord reminds me of, is that He's a big God. Even rare treasures, right? Like, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and receives favor from the Lord. And I'm a good thing, right? And
Yes.
so, like, even rare treasures, like, there's no scarcity of rare in the kingdom. And so when we get into the scarcity mindset, it's like, okay, well then maybe I won't find anybody else like this. Like, no. Why would we limit God like that? Like, I know so many incredible crazy God stories of how God has connected couples literally across like continents, you know?
Yeah.
Like, why would I for a moment freak out that he can't do that for me? You know, I'm not necessarily hoping that my husband is in another continent. I'm not particularly hoping that, but I'm just saying, like, it's just the mindset that we go in with. Do I approach dating with a mindset that my father is the father of all the abundance that there is? Or do I go in with a mindset of like, okay, well, the person I'm looking for is super rare, and so there can only be one, and da 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 da, and like it's just a different mindset. It's a different way of thinking it. And so I think that's another place that I have to be particularly careful, because that is where discouragement can set in for me, because sometimes it can feel like, oh my gosh, again, needle in a haystack, and then like, okay, but either that's not happening now or that's not happening. And then you go back to like looking at what's in the dating pool and you're like, is this all there is? Like, God, like, how you made me. And then there's just this whisper that's like, uh-huh, I knit you that way. Like, I designed you on purpose for a purpose. And I know exactly not only what you need, but who you need now and in the future. And I already have provision for that. So I think that's a big one when it comes to dating and discouragement, is just remembering that this person that you're so heartbroken about right now isn't the only option. What would you add to that, Mickler?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's why it's like I can stay encouraged on the journey, realizing like, hey, okay, like I think I'm getting closer, and that person does exist. So I'm sure there's another person very similar.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jackie says that like every no is a step closer to your yes.
Yeah, nice.
And
Nice.
it's true, and what have you learned in the process that is actually preparing you better for that yes? Maybe that yes has a personality similar to somebody that you've met that, you're like, oh, I get it. I know how to relate to you now, or, whatever. That's
Mm,
just a silly example. But I really believe that none of this is purposeless. None of it is.
mm, yeah.
And like, sometimes the purposes in it are not what we expect. Can I share some funny stories?
No, this is a serious podcast. I don't know what you're talking about. No, please do. Is this
So
is this 828 stuff or no?
this is A28 stuff.
Okay, can you hit the people with 828 just because maybe they're unfamiliar with that verse
Yeah,
and they
yeah,
don't
yeah,
have to look
yeah.
it up. Yeah, yeah.
Romans 8:28. For we know that God works all things together for good for those who love him and are called according to his purpose. And that says all things. It doesn't only mean terrible things, even though we usually use it about terrible things. You
Hey, that's
know,
right. Guilty, guilty. That's right.
right?
That's right.
All things. That word. I'm a Bible nerd. I love to look up the
Mm,
meaning of the word in the original language. All means all, everything.
the bad and the good.
The bad and the good.
Mm, love that.
Because there's also like saying no to good because he is better. Like
Mm,
there's that too, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, and I know that for you and I, like, we want God's best. And so, like,
Yeah.
best looks like saying no to good sometimes. You know?
Yeah.
It does. How many times is that true in business, in what we do with our time, in, what decisions we make? Like, sometimes best requires saying no to good.
No, and I love that you brought the business thing too, because like I'm not saying people are cheap or whatever, but like if you get a client who is like penny pinching type of thing,
That will be a
they
terrible client, and they
yeah,
will
they
make
give
you
you a
regret
headache,
the business.
honestly. But then the people that want to pay you a lot of money, they get the best results because they know the investment that they put in. And it's like, I want to work with that person,
What you're
So
willing to invest in, you value.
mm,
And what
yes.
you value, you're willing to invest in.
Yeah, that's right.
For sure. And honestly, like, if for whatever reason you're not willing to invest in someone, or they're not willing to invest in you beyond a level of their convenience, that tells you how much they value you.
Mm. Yeah, no, and I love how you said that because I think as you are on the journey, like for me, with the last one, I realized, hey, if I'm going to be intentional with this relationship, then there's a little bit more work that I need to be putting in and a little bit more time that I need to put in if I want it to be. Like I can hit them with the excuse like, hey, I'm a single dad. I need to watch my son, or I'm, working and I need to build my business and I'm spending time with family, but it was like, no, like Mickler, they are having their own expectations too and their own desires of like what a relationship should look like. So I need to figure out a way to align myself too. So like with every relationship that doesn't work out, it's like, okay, I'm learning a little bit more about myself and I'm learning a little bit more of like what the woman desires and then how I can kind of align and figure out like how to move forward in that direction. So, but yeah,
100%.
I cut you off on the
No,
on the
you're good.
story.
I'm glad that you did. Well, because you brought up another point that I want to touch on.
All right, let's
When
go.
you really want something, you find a way. When you don't, you find an excuse.
Mm.
So on the hike yesterday, most of us are single. There is one couple who are married, but who actually I want to have as guests on the podcast so we can talk about that offline.
All
But
right, cool.
because their story is just amazing, and it flies in the face of what people expect dating to look like. So anyway, yeah. Anyway, side note, but it's a funny story. You'll like it. So one of the things that came up in conversation on the hike was long distance relationships.
Mm.
And, this guy was like, rah, 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 rah. And I was like, listen, let me tell you something about long distance relationships. I have been in them multiple times. And in both situations, actually, in all of the situations, I was very busy. But in one in particular, like I worked 60 to 80 hours a week and also was going back to school online for my degree. We lived 3 hours apart. He worked 4 jobs and he was a news anchor. You want to talk about busy? And we made it work. Like long distance relationships, man, this is a whole other thing I could get on. But I feel like a lot of people are missing out on quality partners because they're like, oh, long distance relationship. Do you know most of my favorite God stories about God connecting people are long distance? And a lot of them, Mickler, like, so I just think that, again, when we are like, and I know sometimes there's reality of like, hey, I have a kid, I can't move, whatever. But still, I just feel like what you want, you will find a way to make happen. And what you don't, you will find an excuse. And so, even when it comes to a long distance relationship, it's no different than any other relationship in terms of you have to choose to be in that relationship. Any relationship requires intentional connection. And so, again, people are like, oh, I'm too busy for a relationship. And I think about that. I'm like, okay, 4 jobs, working 60 to 80 hours a week, and going back to school online for my degree, and being long distance, but we made it work. Like, if you want something, you make it work, and it's worth it. And like, I thought we were going to get married, and we probably would have if there weren't external circumstances. So, all of that to say, oh, and also, by the way, long distance isn't forever. Like the goal is that eventually
Yeah,
you're together.
that's
You're
right.
not like, I'm never gonna see this person. Like, no, it's a season, right? It's the whole like delayed gratification thing. It's a season. But anyway,
Mm.
whether it's long distance or in person, what I'm trying to say is like it requires intentional connection. And so you figure out what works for the two of you and you make it work. Maybe that's talking every day, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's flying to see each other, once a month, or driving once a month, or whatever it is. I just, again, that which is worth having is worth the risk and worth the cost. And so I feel like I'm on like a side soapbox here, but it's just something I want to talk about because I just, I see it so much, especially in some online communities that I'm part of. And they're like, oh, well, I don't really want to do long distance. Okay, well, how is dating in your town working out for you?
Yeah, that's right.
What if God has this amazing person for you that happens to live an hour away, a state away, half a country away, like whatever it is, right? It's like your options are not, you're the only one who's limiting yourself. So again, it's not for everybody. It is hard. I'm not negating that. And you have to decide what's right for you. Maybe it's not right for you. But I just think that's another example of like, when it comes to is it worth it? The thing about long distance relationships, and again, we had this whole conversation yesterday because one of the girls on the hike had been in a 3-year relationship with a man in another country. Like, that's hardcore long distance right there. And so it was just this conversation that we were having with this guy who at first was like, I don't want to do long distance, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, you don't have to. But, here are our stories. And he was like, oh, wow. And so again, like, it can absolutely be worth it. And the thing that she and I were saying is like long distance relationships, I feel like you get to the meat so much faster because you have to know for sure, like, if this is something you want to do. And so you're not, you don't waste each other's time in that scenario. So anyway, I'm totally off on a soapbox. So let me wrap that soapbox off by simply saying that whether it's in person or long distance or whatever it is, like, is it worth it? Like, what you value, you invest in, and what you invest in, you value. So if this person that you met, whoever that person is truly someone that you value, if having a relationship, if being married is something that you value, and you see a potential for that with this person, why wouldn't you invest? And by the way, investing usually means going beyond the point of your convenience. So that's my little side soapbox that was just spurred by that conversation yesterday.
Dang. No, and I love how you're saying, is it worth it? Like that's the question. And that's something that you would have to determine,
Yeah. Is it worth it to you?
Yeah, exactly. And I think for me, like with this last, one, I can't have excuses of like, hey, like I wasn't sure about intentions, or I wasn't sure where we kind of stood, or, like maybe we didn't communicate as well about in regards to this. Like, should I continue to move forward, But I think as a man, like we do need to take responsibility over our actions. So
Great.
obviously there was something that I did that didn't communicate to her like, hey, I am pursuing you, So I need to own up to it and kind of circle it back of like, hey, I do still have hope because, hey, that for the next girl, I can be more proactive about that and I can have that conversation sooner than later. Yeah, so I think it's just helpful to remain hopeful.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, for sure. So now that I'm off a soapbox, you want me to tell those funny stories?
Yeah. Hit him.
All
Okay,
right.
wait. So this is 828.
Age 28.
Okay.
God works all things together for good. So I had this point probably about a month or so ago where I was just about ready to throw in the towel again on dating. I was like, why, God, why are we even doing this? I just feel like this is a waste of my time and my emotional energy and blah, blah, blah. Like, we have been at this now for 2 years. And like, what's up? What's the deal? And I was like, I see like a lot of heartbreak. And he was like, would you let me show you what I see? Like, oh, okay. And so we went on this journey of like revisiting every, not all the little like one-off DMs or whatever, but all of the like significant connections that have been made these past 2 years. And God just dug out the gold for me. And some of them made me laugh, but they're so true. So I just want to say again, is it worth it? Like, you could look at 2 years and be like, okay, is that actually worth it? Some of the treasures that he has for you might be different than you expect. So the guy that I told you about who took me out for New Year's was also the one who told me about my church that I ended up going to and falling in love with. Now, here's the funny thing. He didn't even go to that church. He didn't even go to that church. We were not on the same page spiritually. He had taken his mom there for Christmas Eve. But God used that, and I had been praying and looking for a church and not finding one that felt like home. And so God used that guy to connect me with my church. Other things that have come out of dating experiences are, I used to think that a date was like this big deal and like, you get dressed up and you go to this fancy restaurant and blah, blah, blah. Like, To this day, one of my favorite first dates that I've ever had was going for a hike and then hanging out afterwards, all like gross. I mean, not like gross, but it was just like it was fun and we laughed and it was low key and like that didn't go anywhere. But that experience took the pressure off of dating for me. And I was like, oh, this can be a date. Oh, I like this. This is fun. And so, like, that helped. My confidence has grown. That story that I just told you about the major date, I got my I met my chiropractor on dating apps, like,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, and you still get adjusted by him.
I do.
Yes.
I do. Best chiropractor I've ever had, hands down.
Yeah. That went over, but I got it out.
That went over, you got it out. Yeah, like one of my closest friends. So okay, so then in October when I moved from the Springs to Denver, I needed help moving. And I was having a hard time lining up people to help me move. So I reached out to some of the guys whose numbers I still had. And one of them was like, yeah, I'd love to help you move. Dropped everything and helped me move. By the way, he's super allergic to cats and he dropped everything to help me move. And I was watching him carry the cat tree down the stairs and just going, who knew that when I met you on a dating app, you would be helping me move my cats right now? Like, what? So I just, then I also have some wild and crazy stories that my best friend and I love to laugh about, like awkward tacos with redneck. And, so like there's everything from confidence to humor to friends to like, again, taking the pressure off and discovery and all of that. Like crazy one that just happened is that when I moved to Denver, I was asking the Lord for community, praying for community, actively searching out community. I looked online, I looked on church websites, I looked on Facebook, I looked on Meetup, was just not finding anything. Well, through a crazy, honestly, horribly painful, awkward, terrible, no good situation, I ended up meeting this guy's brother, different guy than I had referenced a minute ago, a guy that I had been talking to. I ended up meeting his brother, and he said to me, Rachel, I feel like the key, and as we were having this conversation, he was like, I feel like the key to community in Denver is outdoor activities. I was like, huh, okay. Can I tell you that literally unlocked community for me? He also told me about a local Christian hiking group that I started going to, that now I go to every Tuesday night. I made friends. I made a friend there who told me about other meetups in the area for Christians who love hiking. Like, and these are things that are not like posted elsewhere. And I've made friends through that and then made other friends. And so like this cry of my heart for friends and for community in Denver was literally met because of a terrible, awkward, no good situation that God redeemed that involved dating. So it wasn't even the guy I was pseudo dating at the time. It was his brother. So like, I share those stories to encourage you that sometimes what God has for you in dating, what God has for me in dating, might be totally different and might look different than we expect. There's also Christian dating Facebook groups that I'm part of that I have made really great friends in who happen to be in Denver and we didn't even know each other existed. And we met through that Facebook group and now we're friends. So like, I share these stories, like, again, because some of them are pretty funny, but also like just nothing is ever wasted. God doesn't waste it all. He redeems it all. Romans 8:28 is always in effect. And is dating worth it? Yes. And sometimes, I mean, you never know. That guy you just went out on a date with could be the guy who helps you move.
Dang. You know what's so crazy with all that you shared? So what intrigued me to like get dating or like to start dating and put myself out there was like I was in a life group and one of the married couples, the wife said that she believes that marriage is God's preferred method of transformation.
Ooh.
Yeah, and I was like, yo,
Good.
yo, what do you mean? But understanding like, hey, like, as a man, we lay down our life, so we're losing our selfishness, to love on our wife, like how Jesus loved the church, and we're laying down our life. But then the woman is learning to submit and all that, like, just that having that relationship with that person will help you become more and more like Jesus.
Yeah.
But with all that you're sharing, I'm like, dang, even with dating, like, it's helping me transform and become more and more like Jesus too, Like
Totally.
you said, you were growing in confidence. I believe the same thing for me. I'm growing more in understanding and wisdom and like how I would move forward in the next relationship. You said that you got community or in the church, just from the conversation, and like it's amazing. Like I love that. So like for me, understanding like the importance of the journey, and it's not just the destination of marriage, like
Yeah.
embrace the journey of dating, understanding like God is going to use this stuff for our benefit too, for our own transformation as well. So thanks for
And
sharing, Rachel.
yeah,
That's
absolutely. And I want to piggyback on that real quick. It's also not only us, right? Like we talk about on this show, we have the opportunity to be a blessing to the people that we have the opportunity to encourage them, to instill confidence in them, to instill hope in them, to help them discover things about God and others and themselves. And so I think that we have to remember that too. Like, is dating worth it? Also, isn't just about us.
Shoot, that's right. That's right. That's very true. That's very true. Because you can help them with their relationship with the Lord too. Maybe God will use you to give a prophetic word that kind of encourages
Oh,
them
for
and this changes
sure.
their life, right?
For
So,
sure. Like, I mean, again, I talked about this a couple episodes ago, but one of the relationships in particular that didn't work out, like, I have grown in the Lord so much through conversations that we had through that relationship. And so I just I think that we just if you take off the grid that the only success metric for dating is to be in a successful marriage relationship.
yes.
And like you said, Mickler, and you embrace the journey and all of it along the way for us and for others, like that's when it becomes worth it.
I would drop my mic, but like
That might
I
be
don't
kind
think
of loud.
yeah. So good. That's so good. Cool. Anything else? Should we talk? Did we? I think it was good,
I
right?
think it was good. I think it was good. I know you're looking at the time going, but we have to make it an hour. I know you. I know the way your mind works. It's okay. I think we said what needed to be said. I think we can land the plane.
All right. So the synopsis was: is dating worth it? Me and Rachel believe yes, it is, because you will get discouraged along the journey. There's a lot of ups and downs, but you can still stay encouraged because along the way you're getting transformed as well. You're blessing others. You're being blessed, and
You just
yeah,
might be your chiropractor.
you just might meet your Cairo. Oh my gosh. Oh dang. Yeah.
So I do have one more little closing thought that just came to me. So I remember a few years ago, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine whose name also happens to be Rachel. And I was just feeling the longing to be married so intensely. It was interesting because I wasn't even in a dating season at that point. I was still kind of out of the dating pool. By kind of, I mean really. But I was just experiencing this longing. And I was like, this hurts. And she just said to me, Rach, that verse in Proverbs says, a longing fulfilled is a tree of life. The longing precedes the fulfillment. And it just brought such peace to me. So If you are in that place of just feeling that longing, I want to encourage you, that doesn't mean you're discontent in the Lord. That doesn't mean that something's wrong with you, right? That doesn't mean like now don't wallow there. There's a difference. But if you're feeling that longing, longing precedes fulfillment. You know, a longing fulfilled is a tree of life. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a longing fulfilled is a tree of life. And so that longing is the precursor to fulfillment. So don't shame yourself for having that longing. It's actually okay to embrace it and trust the Lord with the process of fulfillment.
Jeez, that's so good. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this episode was fire. I felt it, and we hope that you guys did too. If so, we encourage you guys to share it, get the word out there, comment your aha moments in the comment
Yeah.
section below.
And let us know too, what would you like us to talk about on the show? What would you like us to dive into? You know, we've had multiple people reach out to us and say like, "Thank you for talking about what nobody else is talking about." So, what is it that you want to hear? We would love, love, love to hear that, because the reason we do this is for you. If our journey can help one other person, that's worth it to us. That's why we do what we do. So,
Mm. Yeah, no, I want to piggyback off that. Like, I was getting discouraged. I was like, yo, things aren't working out in my dating journey. Why are we even doing this, Rachel? Like, there's no point in posting this, And then she hit me with like the DM that she's getting. And then I was like, well, let me hit her with the DMs I'm getting too. So we appreciate the love and that it is bringing value to you guys. You guys are seeing, um, yeah, it's helpful. So I really appreciate that. And yeah, keep sending the love over.
yeah.
And
And what you want to hear too, because, what I said to Mickler that night, because we were
Mm.
both feeling it, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, listen, we said we would show up and share our journeys. We didn't just say we'd share the highlight reel.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So that's what we're here to do. So we appreciate you. Thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. And again, if what we have shared here today has been helpful and encouraging to you, and you know somebody else who would benefit from this conversation we just had, please take a moment and share it. It would mean the world to both Mickler and I if you would do that.
Yes. All right.